And we're on the air. And this week on the Fifth Dimension, I am joined by author of The Now-ist, Billy Mandarino. Billy, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you, Evan. It's my great pleasure and honor to be here to speak to you and your listeners. I'm blessed to be here in this moment. Thank you.
Of course, and thank you. I feel blessed to have you on. And I'd love to start, with The Now-ist, your book, The Now-ist, and I love the meaning behind it. And I would love if you could just speak to the book itself. What does it mean to be a nowist? What is, maybe how did you find yourself on the journey to writing this book and engaging with these teachings really as your calling?
That's the word. You're right. Calling. It was a calling. It wasn't something I set out to do. I mean, I didn't graduate from college. I don't even like writing emails. I never considered myself to be this author. I answered this calling. It was an inspiration. It was something that chose me. I didn't choose it. And when you answer, when you answer those callings, there's no other choice. Like it picks you. You don't go after it. It seeks you out and it finds you. And when I was 19 years old, a traumatic event changed my life. I was a track star, high school track star, and I was in state, and I was a pole vaulter, and I was set to win this event. And I had this terrible accident. I broke my pole, I hit my head, I lost my sight for a brief moment. And this cataclysmic event, this terrible event anchored me to my past. And at 19, then I had other opportunities, and I just kept going back to that quote unquote failure. So my precious present moments were constantly poisoned by that past. And so as I, got lost in my past, and what happens is your future usually becomes a replication of your past. Because so many people, I'm sure your listeners and you would probably agree, that events that happen in your past tend to leak into your present. You make decisions based on your past experiences. You live backwards almost, instead of, it's almost, this is a great analogy. I love this because I have a car that has a huge windscreen, right? And that rear view mirror takes up, I don't know what, a few percentage points of that total mass that is your windscreen. Yet if you drive your car as fast as you can looking in that windscreen, you're going to crash it every time. Well, the vehicle, let's call our body that vehicle. And if you live your life looking in that rearview mirror consistently, looking back, you crash every time. You end up just creating a mess of your life, your vehicle, other people's cars, which are your friends, your family members, your significant others, because you live your life in this reverse mentality of looking at that rearview mirror. So that was my challenge as a young man, as a young adult from 6 kids growing up in a multiple divorce family. I just kept looking at my past and some traumas in my past. It was affecting my relationships, emotional relationships, my spiritual life, financial life, my career opportunities. And I finally, got enough pain. I guess I'm a slow learner. I have a high pain threshold. And I got enough pain that I drank deeply of good spiritual books and great teachers like Eckhart Tolle and Dr. Wayne Dyer and Deepak and Neville Goddard and Nisargadatta Maharaj and Krishnamurti and all these amazing authors. I'm sure you've read some of them. But it wasn't until I found my salvation in this one word, and N-O-W was that word. And what's now spelled backwards?
One.
When you're in the now, you've won. You've won your presence back. And it was like this huge aha bucket of cold water being just poured on me, this awakening to, whoa, the present moment is literally the only time you have power and energy to change your life. There's no linear time. I mean, the linear time bound thinking always leads to the wreckage of your vehicle, of your car, of your life, because you get caught up in past thinking. You're focusing on the future. There's no energy in those. They're dead. There's just past and future events. So when I learned that the power of the present moment, I started having these satorais, or flashes of enlightenment, as it's called in the Zen tradition. And my teaching started to find me. Like I was drinking so deeply of these books and living for a good 10 years, just living as a nowist, living as someone who lives in the present moment, constantly focused on what I can do in this moment, and using my great gift of my imagination to focus on what I wanted to manifest in my life, but using my present moment energy to manifest, and using meditation and just focused energy exercises that I created myself, and how to change my life. Then my life started to change. I learned to think from the end with my imagination instead of about the end. About the end is time. About the end is two-ness. Like I'm here now, but I want to be there. And I learned that this present moment is all my power and all my energy. So then one morning I wake up and this crazy email comes to me synchronistically, which is nothing I planned on, but it was from a great teacher named Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he'd already passed on. But it was this writing class of, how to get your message out in the world from Hay House and these great publishing companies about how to be a writer. And I thought, I'm not a writer, but I had this crazy experience where the energy of my body, just, you get the tinglies, or you get the hair on your back, your neck and your arm, this energy source waved over me. I know it's a little woo woo, but I know your show and your viewers can, or your listeners can handle this.
Mm-hmm.
But this energy came into me, and the word Now-ist just like rang into my being. It rang through me like with all that energy. And I just felt that was my calling. So then this is when it gets really weird. So I woke up that next morning, and at 4:30 in the morning, and I had no idea how to write a book. But this course was supposedly going to teach you how to write a book. But I had already just kind of watched the initial video and just took into some of the outlining ideas. And I got up the next morning at 4:30, and I sat at the same kitchen table that you're interviewing me at right now in my home in Santa Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote 65,000 words at 4:30 in the morning for 9 months straight. And I never had to get up with an alarm. Like spirit called me, like, and these 65,000 words came through me. And it turns out that these are the Now-ist teachings. And now my book came out 2 years ago, and I've been touring the world speaking and teaching. I do one-on-one coaching. My first live event is May 7th and 8th, 2021 here in Santa Barbara. And it's just been this calling that I've answered. And now I'm just here to share it with as many people as I can serve that are in stress, worry, fear, anxiety, overwhelm. And I can teach people how to transform their life and to live as a Now-ist. It's not a religion. It's just a way of being. It's a practice. And once you learn this practice and this way of being in the world, you just start to manifest and become of service to more people, and your life changes. And that's been my great honor, to be a spiritual teacher and a teacher of this teaching in this book.
Right. That's beautiful. And what would you say the core of being a Nowist? Like, what is the principle that is basically the foundation? I mean, we know living in the now, but how does, when you're working with others, and we talked about how identity is often shaped by trauma and shaped by our past, or we're worrying about the future. Very, very little are we actually here now. What is the core foundation of the Nowist teaching that can really shift, I suppose, that mindset and bring us into the now? Like, what is it that you, like, I'd say the key principles that you bring out to make this sort of a self-realizing discovery for people?
Here it is. So as you listen to this podcast, I invite your listeners or viewers, if this is a YouTube, to go to billymandarino.com, and you'll see the Now-ist symbol. It's also the cover of my book. It's a symbol. It's not a religious symbol. It's a spiritual symbol. It looks similar to a cross, but it's actually a technology. This cover of my book, the Now-ist symbol, teaches you how to become a Now-ist, and step one in the principle. And when you look at this symbol, and I'll explain it to you this way. If you look at the symbol, you'll see a horizontal line. It looks like just a light, bright line straight across. Then you'll see a vertical symbol. Mm-hmm. And you'll notice where those two symbols intersect, there's this explosion of light. And let me explain what that means. So when you have this horizontal line, that's a timeline. That's chronological time. That's past future time. That's linear time. That's what most people live in. They have their calendar, their scheduled appointments, their to-do lists, everything they have to do in this world. The doing, the human doing part of not the human being part, the human doing part.
Right. Then
you have this intersecting line, which goes straight up. We call this an eternal time or divine time. That goes straight up. When you see in the symbol, there's this intersection, these two lines intersect, and there's this explosion of light. That is the now. When you can take linear time or past future time and cross it with eternal time or divine time, that intersection is the now. And you get there by focusing on your breath. You get there by changing your images in your mind. You get there by getting into this present moment. That's why I consider that a technology, a symbol. It's a transformational symbol that is the first lesson of being a Now-ist, is getting out of physical time into divine time, into eternal time. And you get there by your awareness. When you first realize that you are not present, you actually are taking that first step towards being present. And that symbol, by looking at it, and if you practice it, that's why, 96% of everything you do, Evan, is done with your subconscious mind every day. I just teach people through habitual ways of living, ritualistic ways of living, to program that 96% of your mind as a Now-ist. So you kind of innately interact with people with presence. You look at challenges in your life with a more present-minded approach. You learn to take your breath more consistently and be aware of your breath more consistently when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or focused on the wrong thing. I teach you how to use your imagination to use that coupled with your breath and your awareness, your present moment awareness, to change your point of attraction so you can bring more abundance into your life.
Right. That's beautiful. And you brought up so many key points and areas that I've found by myself by just integrating a more mindful, conscious awareness, areas that I've found help bring that. Like I do breath work every morning and meditation, and I found my creativity and imagination are actually almost anchoring me to my true self and my abilities. And we live in such a world of like commodification and consumerism and material, and it's almost like we've externalized very much our uh, reality, if you will. Like we're living outside of ourselves in this sort of chase. And
Yes.
so I do feel like it's almost sort of like this integration process. I mean, how how was the journey for you in terms of learning to balance this commodification lifestyle where money equates to freedom and we need to chase and earn to have this the ideal living, ideal life, but also integrating this idea of presence and simply being. Do you find that when you take this Nowist approach, this competition and drive sort of just takes care of itself, or like how does the integration process work with that?
That's a great question. I get a lot of folks that initially work with me in that same trap of competing with the Joneses, is how I like to put it, right? Because
Mhm.
we're in this world, we're in a body, we're physical beings, right? People think we're physical beings having this spiritual experience, but the reality is we are, temporary physical beings having this eternal spiritual experience. But yet we run our life like, we have to have all these things and we have to compete and do. And the mantra of the ego is I need more. I need to be separate from you. I have to win. I have to, I'm separate from what's missing in my life. I have to compete. And my reputation is very important, because if you look at the news media, you look at the magazines, you look at Instagram, Facebook, and how many likes is my life worth, to quote a famous song called Sick Boy by the Chainsmokers that I love so much. When I speak to middle schoolers, I bring that analogy up, and there's this great line from that song: feed yourself with my life's works. How many likes is my life worth? That's the chorus to that song. And I connect with that when I'm speaking to the youth. But it's a good message for everybody, because we get so caught up in this doing. We get caught up in this competition mentality and this separation mentality that to be better than you, to be separate from you, means I win. It means that I compete and I'm better than you. Instead of thinking, well, I come from oneness. I come from the great source. I'm not going to preach about God and about being separate from people, but I always use the analogy of the ocean. Like if you look at the ocean, and if you were to go to the ocean and I was to grab a bucket and take that bucket of water and set it on the sand next to you, and Evan and I are sitting on the beach and we're looking at the ocean and we're thinking, okay, there's this bucket of ocean next to me, but the ocean is all together in the bucket
Mhm.
and the bucket is all together in the ocean. It's only when they become separate that the water in the bucket evaporates and transforms back into the clouds, back into rain, and the cycle begins. So we get caught up in the separation mentality. But it's the oneness, it's the unity consciousness that really brings us all the things we want in the world. Just to answer your question, like we're out and seeking in the world, we're trying to make things happen and to have more money and to get that relationship and have the health and the family and all the stuff we want. But the crazy part of abundance is it happens when you surrender and let go. It's counterintuitive, but everybody misses that because we're
Mhm.
so programmed through media, through the news, through movies, through TV, by separation and by standing out and being number one, getting that gold star. Instead of thinking, wow, and this is what I've learned, this is what I teach, and what's transformed my life is surrender. I've learned that when you have everything you need, you get everything you want. When you're content, like I love William Shakespeare has this great quote. I'm going to preface his quote. He says, "My crown is not on my head. My crown is in my heart, not decked in diamonds and Indian stones. My crown is called content. A crown it is seldom a king enjoys."
Mm.
So we're caught up, right, in this sinking, in this, instead of just being content. When I've learned to be content and think, okay, recently I love golf. Golf for me is just, it's interesting because it's golf is considered to be this boring sport to watch on TV, right? People,
Right.
oh, it's like watching paint dry. These old guys and gals play golf, and I have always enjoyed golf, but I've never had any professional lessons. It's literally become like a meditation to me. So I play golf tournaments because it teaches me how to be in the present moment. Because in golf, you can only be focused on one shot at a time. If you think about the bad shot you did, the terrible score you got in the hole before, and you bring that in, that past energy into your next shot, and you have your awareness thinking about, oh, that terrible thing that happened. It's just like life. It just teaches you how to use your present moment energy to focus and visualize on what it is you want. And then your physical being has to create this movement, this athletic movement to create the shot. And to me, golf is like a meditation. So I play a lot of golf because I breathe, I visualize, I'm one with nature. It's, they say the swing chooses you. And there's
Mhm.
this movie called Bagger Vance. It's a famous movie with Will Smith and Matt Damon, but it was based on the Bhagavad Gita, which is a famous text, obviously a
Right.
Hindu text. And it's more spiritual. So I encourage people, if golf is very frustrating, but it teaches you kind of the way
Mm.
of being in allowing and being in surrender. And that's how I ended up getting through this world of doing. I learned to be more of the human being that we all are meant to be.
Right, definitely. And I definitely resonate. And this idea of surrender is one that's been very prevalent for me lately as well. And I've noticed that uh, we're in a time of almost a collective chaos, if you will. For a lot of people, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of fear. And for me, this idea of just surrendering to what is allows me to be myself authentically. So I definitely resonate with that. And it I feel like our society is built and preached. I'm a teacher myself, so and I see this in schools, how curriculums are designed around this illusion of separation, and how
Mm,
everybody, it's from the very beginning, we're taught to compete, whether it be for grades or I think sport is a great way to bring people together, but again, it's competition in a way. We're always looking to one up one another instead of come together in unity and make uh, abundance something that should be shared and accessible for everybody. And it's when you find yourself at the lower end of that hierarchy, it can be very difficult to feel your sense of being and your sense of worth.
absolutely. That's what happens. I love speaking to what you're talking on. I love that this conversation is so important right now because think about what's going on in the world right now with separation and isolation, and the unity consciousness conversation doesn't seem to be going on. It seems separation activity is what's going on, not unity consciousness and unity, because I think it's dangerous. I get that we have to take care of each other, but psychologically, we need the unity. We need to unify more than ever. And I just love what Hafiz, the great Persian poet, says. Just look at the sun. The sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Just imagine what a love like that does. It lights up the whole world.
Mm.
And that's the contentment. That's when you have a bunch of anything, an abundance of anything, you just want to give it away. And when you can live that way, and that's what happens when you learn to live as a nowist, learn to be content and surrender into what is, abundance is attracted to you because you're acting like that great source. You're acting like that sun or that ocean. You're not in lack. I mean, how could the God of oneness ever recognize two-ness? The God of one would never be one if it recognized two. So it's interesting when people go with these prayers of supplication to say, please heal me, please give me the relationship, the money, the stuff I want. God, give me that. But how could the God of oneness recognize two-ness? You have to come in gratitude. You have to say, thank you for that abundance. Thank you for this healing. Thank you for this relationship. I'm in such gratitude for this moment of health and blessing. That's how you attract abundance into your life. That you act like the great source.
Right. And I don't remember who said it, but there's a quote of, if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that'll be enough. This idea of contentment.
That was actually Meister Eckhart that said that.
I think you're definitely right.
The great Catholic sage of the 12th, 13th century. I love Meister Eckhart. And it's so great you said that, Evan, because that is the very first quote, not that quote, but a quote from Meister Eckhart opens up my book. And it says, time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There's no greater obstacle to God than time.
Mm.
Right? Because we get separate. As the time is this illusion. That's why I give you the Now-ist symbol and the technology of time, this linear timeline. That's what's keeping you away from the oneness, from all the abundance and the abilities you have to serve come from this illusion of separation. You need to be in that light, which is the light that you are, the light that I am.
Right, definitely. And I 100% agree. And I mean, how would you say that? I feel like more and more people are beginning to sort of awaken to this natural state, right? And it's almost a paradox in a sense that we feel disconnected from oneness because it is truly always there. Like it never goes away. Like we are interconnected. So it's a paradox to say we're disconnected. But I feel more people are remembering this state and allowing this abundance to flow through them. And I see this happening in people around me. And I'm connecting with more and more people online who are feeling the same way. And uh, what do you suppose a society living by Now-ist principles, like how do we work towards that? And how would our sort of how would we need to change our sort of principles in organization and in priorities at a sort of a collective level? Or is that something that will, as individuals, the more and more we begin to do this individually, it'll sort of naturally shift at the collective? Like what steps do we need to go to make this these principles more of a reality collectively?
Well, in my book, there's a chapter on relationships, and we're not talking just about relationships of romance or husband, wife, or spouses or significant others. It's a relationship with the humankind and the human condition. And I interviewed about 100 couples for this book in this chapter, and I did it without hope and intention to write in this book. I was doing this for my own marriage. I've been married to my beautiful wife. We have a beautiful daughter. I'm so blessed. We've been married 25 years, and I've studied relationships because I've some of my role models didn't, fare so well. There's a 60% divorce rate in the world right now, and I think it's growing. So I think of relationship as not just a romantic relationship. I think a relationship to humankind and people. And I was guest DJing. I'm a musician as well as a realtor and a property manager and a speaker and an author and a life coach and all the stuff I do, a spiritual teacher. But I guest DJs for charity events here in Santa Barbara. And I was a guest DJ for this cause. It's called CALM, CALM, Child Abuse Listen Mediation. And I was the guest DJ. I was sitting at the head table of the founder of this beautiful center to help abused children. And she and her husband were next to me. I thought, okay, this is the couple. They said they've been married 40 years. I want to ask them my famous question, like, what is the secret to being married 40 years? And after interviewing 100 couples, she gave me the best answer, and it's in my book. And I'm going to tell you what it is, because to me, this applies not just to relationships, but it applies to people, humankind, human connections. And she said simply, we do not keep score. We don't keep score. If he goes grocery shopping, he doesn't expect me to go unload the groceries. If I walk the dog, he doesn't expect, I don't expect him to go unload the dishwasher or fold the laundry. We always find ways to be of service to the other person. We don't keep score. It's not an abacus, like you did this, it's quid pro quo. You did this, so I get this, and I do that, and because you get, it's none of that. It's just, how can I be of service? And if we could do that in the world and humankind, think about how we would shift the collective consciousness of this
Mm,
planet. Just like the Hafiz quote I gave you earlier, like we just would be of service. We'd never
right.
ask for thank you. We'd never ask for recognition. We just find a way to not keep score and to constantly be of service to the other person. And what happens is your life gets better because the law of attraction initiates. And all of a sudden, you're not coming from lack and scarcity. You're coming from abundance, so much so that you serve people emotionally, socially, spiritually, financially. And that would shift the world. That
Mm,
would shift the planet.
I
And that's
absolutely.
my mission. That's my mission, to create a legion of nowists, people that live consistently in the present moment. When you have so much abundance, you just want to pay it forward and give it away.
That's beautiful. And I 100% agree. And it's, I would say, being of service. That's what I found my purpose to be. How can I be of service? When I began asking that question, I began having my own callings on ways that I could do that uniquely. And I feel that everybody can truly be of service in such a beautiful, unique way. Like there is no exact right answer. How do you be of service? Well, what are you good at? What are you talented at? How can you make a difference in the lives of others? And I think when we begin to ask ourselves that question on a deep level, and use our creativity and imagination, kind of like we talked about earlier, we can truly live a life of fulfillment. I feel like that's what brings us joy. That's what brings us love. That's what brings us abundance, like we mentioned. And I feel that there's a lot of people sort of who feel like they maybe lack purpose or their life lacks meaning, like they're coming from that lack mentality. But I think it has to do with this idea that for me, when I was feeling when I felt this in my own life, I was very much working only towards my own individual self. But when it shifted to how can I be of service beyond the individual self, work towards a higher calling, work towards uh, all that is, that's when that mindset shifted. That's when I began feeling abundance present in every moment. And I do feel like that is the key. And something that in terms of what I've seen in working, especially in students, something my mission is to, how can I help you find your purpose? I feel like we
Mm,
need to be teaching that within schools, you
that's it.
know,
You're right.
how,
Emotional intelligence should be taught as right along math and science. It
right.
should be. It should be ubiquitous across the country, not across the world, where it should be literally what we're talking about here. How you feel. How do you check in with your emotions? How do you deal with stress, anxiety, overwhelm, fear? How do you, what modalities do you tap into? Just like how do you, what's 1 + 1? How do you, what's the Pythagorean theorem? How do you deal with creating conjugating verbs? And right, why not have emotional intelligence be part of? And I think it's coming, but that would help this epidemic because heart disease is the #1 killer in the world. Cancer is #2. Hospitalizations #3, and a large mass of those maladies are created by stress.
Right.
And I have a glass here. Could I fill this up with stress, this thing that's killing the planet? And we could decide that this is the thing, this is stress. We've identified it. We're going to fix it. We can create a vaccine for it or fix, there's no such thing as stress. There's no physical thing as stress. There's just people thinking stressful thoughts. And when you change how you think, you can change, right, what happens to your life. And beautiful teacher, Dr. Wayne Dyer, his famous epitome was, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So that's how we can transmute people out of these negative ways and patterns of thinking, especially the youth, through teaching and education in school, how to change how they look at things. Because stress doesn't exist. It's just people thinking stress. Yet stress is the great killer, isn't it?
Right.
Do you
100%.
know, Evan, do you know in the United States of America, we represent 5% of the world population?
Mm,
We consume 55% of the painkillers and opioids in the world. So we are the most stressed out country on the planet. That's
right.
why I feel uniquely blessed and called to teach the nowist ways of living and being and help people survive that mentality and thrive through this COVID, through all this stress and overwhelm and anxiety, because stress is not a thing. The news, shut it off.
Stress. Yep.
People are inundated. You just need to be informed. You don't need to be inundated. It's habits like that. Going to bed with the nightly news on how many deaths, how many terrible things are happening, waking up in the morning to the news, having these habits, habitual ways of living, especially right now when stress is ramped up. 70% of the world is experiencing stress every day because of COVID, and it's exacerbated. But it's
Right.
habits, it's habitual ways of living. But you have to be informed, not inundated. And inundation creates more stress. And it's a habit, it's a choice, it's awareness. We all just need to wake up.
Right. And I 100% agree. And unfortunately, I don't see that taught in the younger generations. I think there's more awareness to it, and it feels like we're very much in the early stages of identifying this as, what what is the causes of stress. It's our habits, it's our way of life, it's the foods we eat that would that are, a lot of it is garbage. It's the it because our perception does create reality. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so when we're consuming, like we've been taught to, consuming the news or consuming the just the stressors that don't have to be stressors in life. We're taught to make almost everything stressful, whether it be relationships or uh, for example, a lot of schoolwork for kids is meant. I feel like a lot of it is almost busy work to keep them busy and doing.
Right. Distracted, distraction
Right.
mentality. Yeah.
Right. So it's, I feel like when we can identify that's essentially identify that stress is the number one, um, I would say, cause of disease, which we
It,
have,
it,
we can
it,
we can shift.
it
Uh,
is. You're right. It is the number one cause of dis-ease. You said it, right? It is disease. You've heard that 100 times, I'm sure, but a body at ease will not create dis-ease. I want to teach
mm,
you how to live in ease and live in the present moment, which has only your awareness and what you're focused on in this moment. Like you cannot be grateful and stressed at the same time. And that's usually one of the quickest ways I help our youth out of stress. Like they're overwhelmed and they see these terrible things that are happening in the world. And I just, no, be thankful for your dog right now. Just think about holding your dog, breathe, think about how dog is kissing your face. And like, if you're grateful for something, you can't be grateful and angry at the same time. You can't be grateful and stressed. So it's gratitude is the best multiplier.
mhm.
Gratitude is the best multiplier. That's how you get yourself out of these patterns, these negative patterns of stress, which causes disease, which is affecting the planet in such an adverse way. We've got to wake up and change this thing.
Right. No, and I definitely agree. And I think love and gratitude is that medicine. It's that solution. And it, I do want to ask, when we have this fear, right? There's a lot of people with the fear of moving into a space of love and gratitude. How how do we stay mindful of that in terms of, whether it be from a teacher perspective, or if somebody is feeling this fear to open up and live in this space, how do we I would say, encourage this and get people to be willing to detach from the identity of past trauma or past stress or this ingrained mentality, and sort of show that this, coming from a space of love and gratitude and presence, while it's going to be a different approach than the previous, mind running, living in the past or worrying about the future, it's all there is. It's the beauty. It's what life is meant to be. It's our natural state. How do we ease people through into that shift and make it a process that we want to engage in, I suppose.
It comes down to people's habits, people's habitual way of living without awareness. And that's how it's interrupting the pattern. So I work with one-on-one clients. We have a
Mm-hmm.
12-week program we go through. And usually it starts with, what's your morning like? Like, what's your routine like? You can just show me your routine. I'll kind of show me your schedule and I'll show you your life. And a lot of my students, I'll look at there's nothing scheduled. There's no meditation schedule. There's no workout schedule. There's no time to be quiet by yourself because they're so busy with kids and family and work and jobs and pets and everything they have to do. They get caught up in this doing. And so they're really planning to lose the game of life. They're setting themselves up to fail because they don't have an active way of living consistently that shaped your life. So like we talked about earlier, that 96% of your subconscious mind, if you have great patterns and rituals and habits, you will start to inculcate and ingrain this re-hardwiring of your hard system, right? Your software is like our thoughts and our consciousness. The hardware is the physical body, right? And we
Mhm.
know the physical body, if you look at obesity, you look at heart disease and cancer, that the software is really corrupting the hardware right now, to use a computer analogy. And people's habits and way of living is the main culprit, because they get caught up in addiction patterns from their past, maybe trauma from their childhood made them drink or smoke a little bit, or made them overeat because they're trying to find love. They're in these bad habits, but they don't know they're doing them because it's all this programming that happens. So when you can interrupt your pattern, and that's why I start my day. If you go to my YouTube channel, I have the Now-ist morning rituals. It's only like a 7-minute video, but I show you through my day how I start my day, how I ritualistically live. It's very simple. The Now-ist meditation takes 1 minute, and I do it many times a day. It's the quickest way I can interrupt my pattern, and I can do what's called a broad eye or open eye, divergent focus, or you can do a convergent focus with your eyes closed. But you can do this meditation with your eyes open or your eyes closed. And I use it many times a day when I'm in stress patterns, when I have, because I'm a property manager and a realtor. That's how I monetize the Now-ist at this point, until this becomes this overarching teaching where it's all I do. But in the meantime, while I'm serving the world, I'm also serving the real estate community of Santa Barbara, California.
Mhm.
But my one-on-one clients, usually their biggest problem is they're not setting themselves up to win the game of life. They literally let the amorphous way of living, where their schedule gets to do what it's going to do when you flex with the kids and your husband, and you're on everybody else's schedule. You have to show me your calendar. Show me, are you blocking out your life? Are you getting organized in such a way? It's systematic, but it's also a fluid system that I teach of how to get your life together. And it starts with that. Show me your schedule. Because to answer your question, I find that people, they are so caught up in the momentum of living. It's like you're on this river, Evan. You have no oar. You're just going bouncing off the rocks. And you just like hoping that you can get to an eddy or someplace where you get a break, but you never do, because life is like a river. It's constantly flowing. It constantly moves. But you have to have your presence and you have to have your awareness with you to navigate you through the rapids into the torrents of life. If you don't have that awareness and that presence, and you have a plan, you have a ritualistic and habitual way of living, you are just a victim to the tides of and the currents of life. And that's how
Right.
most people live. That's why we have addictions on the rise. That's why we have, unfortunately, so suicide rates and all this. COVID is exacerbating an already problematic condition. That's why people have to take their power back. It comes with your powerful present moment awareness. And that is literally getting into step one, which is realizing you have the problem, like in all the addiction programs, right? You realize you have a problem. You don't want to live that way anymore. And you have to take action, massive action. But as much action as you take, and you have to surrender at the same time. It's kind
Right.
of counterintuitive, but that's the success I've had with my one-on-one students, is literally breaking it down to a granular level. But it always starts with, what is your habitual way of starting your day? How do
Mhm.
you block out your day? How do you plan presence into your day? Do you actually find moments, that 1 minute, to do the Now-ist meditation, to do it with your open eyes? It's a breath. It's only a minute. And I can't teach it to you now because it's a little involved. But if you go to my YouTube channel, subscribe to Billy Mandarino, the Now-ist, and I have 500 videos plus on there, free
Mhm.
teaching. And the last 3 or 4 are really poignant to speaking to what I'm teaching today and what we're talking about today, which can help people for free learn how to start this path of living in present moment awareness, which will change your life. And then what happens, like when you have anything, you just want to help those less fortunate. You want to be of service to people and teach them how to be present and show them through your life's experience how you shifted your life from addiction, from overwhelm, from anxiety, fear, and strife, and all these conditions, these mental, emotional conditions that are linked to stress. But as we learned a little earlier in our podcast, there's no such thing as stress. There's just people thinking stressful thoughts. So why is this phantom destroying our planet? Because we are unaware. We
Right.
are unaware, and awareness is the key.
Mhm.
Present moment awareness is the key.
Absolutely. I agree. That's unconscious awareness is really how society has lived, run for pretty much as long as we've been the material way of living that we've had for however many years. I mean, you could probably trace it back thousands upon thousands of years.
Absolutely.
and I think we've seen very similar teachings come out from uh, often people times you look at prophets, you could look at the Buddha, you could
Yes.
look at Jesus, Mohammed. They're oftentimes teaching about these very principles.
Mm.
That's and it was them seeing the light was them living in this state of um, service to others and the now and realizing that there's more to life than this unconscious awareness you
I
know
love what Jesus says about that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Evan, but Jesus says, I think it's in Luke or Matthew, he says, no man setting his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom of heaven.
Mm,
Right. And that's the world. We're all just thinking, okay, we're going to get our plow is our, our field is our job, is our family, is our way in the world. And our plow is like, right, our body and our ability to like create, to till the soil and make it happen. But if you're looking backwards, you're not fit for the kingdom of heaven. And the kingdom of heaven is now. Because if you remember from the Now-ist symbol, you're in eternal time. There is no time in the present moment. It's infinite. It's divine. It's eternal time. The present moment is timeless. So the kingdom of heaven is being a Now-ist, being in that present moment awareness where all peace, joy, abundance comes from. So you can't look backwards and think, oh, you're not fit for the kingdom of heaven because you're thinking about your past. You're worried about your future. You're thinking, am I going to get to the end of this corn row and then do the next one? Like you can't, you got to get out of time. Time, as Einstein said, is the great illusion. It doesn't exist. It's a man-made concept. So we
right.
can't live that way. We have to live with awareness in divine time and eternal time. And that's resides only in the now.
Absolutely. Heaven and hell is really just synonyms for conscious, unconscious.
That's
That's
it.
that's truly all it
Jesus
is.
says, there are many mansions, right? And I go before you to prepare a place for you. But in my house is many rooms. In my mansion there's many rooms. Those are all levels of consciousness.
Mm,
He was speaking of different levels of consciousness and how
right.
to get out of them, so you can get out of the house altogether and be in heaven, which is now.
Which
You
is
can
now.
create you can create your heaven or hell. It's your choice. It's your process of thinking and how you use your awareness and how you use your imagination, more importantly.
Right. Definitely. And I think imagination, that last point you made is so key because there isn't necessarily a a guide per se, a you have to do this X, Y, and Z to reach this state of presence. It's going to be unique for everybody. There's certainly I think foundational principles like you're talking about, the Nowist principles. Anybody can use those to reach that state, but once we're in this state, how we live in it ultimately is going to be unique to us and unique to our situation and our
And
experience.
I, I, I don't mean to intentionally keep quoting the Bible, but I love it when Jesus says that, even the least among you can do all that I have done and even greater things. I mean, how
Mm,
could you think about how could you do greater things than Jesus? I mean, Jesus did all these amazing miracles. How could I do more than Jesus? But I
mm,
don't believe he was lying. I believe he was telling us that we have as greater power than even he had because we live in this time. Look where we live. Planes fly. Like we can
right.
go to, right. We're on the internet right now, just like talking to each other through, think about how
Yeah.
incredible there's virtual technology going on. There's nanoscience, all this incredible stuff going on. We can do greater things, but our imagination is that limitless potential that Jesus was talking about. Like your imagination is the greatest gift I believe you've ever been given. And that's your
Absolutely.
power to create and manifest. Because Leonardo da Vinci said, first it's in your mind and then it's in your hand.
Mm,
That's what Leonardo da Vinci said about his art. Because
right.
it's imagined, it's an image first, then you manifest. So your
Absolutely.
imagination is one of the greatest gifts. So you got to learn how to use it. And I teach how to use it in my book and in my Now-ist teachings. It's one of my great gifts is to teach people how to use their imagination, see what they can create.
Right. If you can think it, it can be created. If it's in the realm of thought, it can be in the physical realm as well. It's
Absolutely.
just about manifesting it and making it happen in the now. And the thing about humans is I feel like we're always supposed to be growing. Like human evolution is built on the principle that we are continuously expanding our levels of consciousness, expanding our growth. We could look at that from a personal level. Like I'm going to continue to grow throughout my life, but over the course of human history, also we're going to continue to grow. We look at what's uh, our technologies now versus 2,000 years ago, and when we live in this state of conscious awareness, we allow that natural growth to take place because we're using all of these the beautiful imagination to create, and we're tapping into abundance. And if everybody can tap into this, the the infinite possibilities that exist for the future, uh you can't even put it into words. It's truly remarkable to think about that possibility and what
Oh,
people can do.
absolutely. And that's, I teach, one of my chapters is called No Goals, Just Soul, Learning to Detach from Outcomes.
Mm,
And I teach you to think from the end instead of about the end. About the end is like I used to have, I call them my bathroom mirror goals, Evan, where I would, every morning I'd get up and I'd look at these 7 goals I put on my bathroom mirror. And there'd be, all these different goals. And I just become a realtor, and I wanted to sell more than one house a year because that's all I had sold my first year. And so it was like to sell 10 houses in one year was just one of my goals. And so I would get up every morning, look at that goal, and I would think, how am I going to do that? I would think in my stomach, I would feel stress because, there's 40,000 more neurons in your stomach than in your brain. So when they talk about your gut reaction, yes, my gut, and people have IBS and uh, ulcers and all these stomach conditions because you are feeling with your emotions in your gut. And so I would look at this goal and get nervous and think, and I'll get sweaty, like, oh man, I've got no prospects. I've got no open houses to do. And I would look at these other goals and just feel really nervous. So I would think about the future. And this is, thinking about the end. When that happens, I'll be happy. When that happens, I'll be fulfilled. How am I going to do that? It wasn't until I read this brilliant book by Neville Goddard called The Power of Awareness, written in the 1930s. And
wow.
he says, when you learn to think from the end instead of about the end, you can transform your life. And that's what I did. I started, before I would go to bed every night, I would start imagining what it was like. I would imagine it was Christmas time. And I had a house for sale, and I would imagine this family coming, having Christmas dinner, and I could smell homemade bread and turkey and all these great, and the smell of the pine tree. And I imagine it was Christmas Eve, and I was driving over to give them a present, Christmas present, because they had bought the house and they were already there. Every night before I would go to bed, I had this one listing to sell. I would imagine that. I would feel, and all 5 of my senses would be engaged. And I started using my imagination to think from the end instead of about the end, as if it already happened here, now, done. So when I get out of bed the next morning, I do this before I go to sleep and before I get out of bed in the morning. So what am I doing? I'm subconsciously programming myself. My subconscious mind is being programmed to think from the end as if it's already done, here, complete. So long story short, after about 8 days I did this, the family was 3 kids. No, sorry, it was a husband and wife, a blonde daughter, a brunette son, and a dog. That's who I just, my imagination creatively created that. Like I just said, and I would just, all 5 of my senses. So on the 8th day, I got a call from an agent with a family that wanted to look at this house with that very description.
Wow.
So that's the power of your imagination. So then I ripped my goals down after that. I crumpled them up, and I never wrote my bathroom mirror goals again. Because now when I want to manifest, when I want to attract abundance in my life, I think from the end instead of about the end. And you can do it in any area of your life. It's called the law of identical harvest.
Love identical. I love that. And I think that's such an important concept to bring out, because everybody does talk about setting goals, writing to-do lists. And we think from the place of, I'm at for example, when I wanted to start my podcast, it took me so long to start it because I was at the very beginning and I didn't know what I was going to do. And by the time by the time that I actually got around to getting it going, it was because I had sort of surrendered the idea that I knew what I was doing. Like, I didn't know what I was
Yes,
doing.
yes,
Yeah. You
right.
just kind of have
Act
this.
as if.
Right. Exactly.
Fake it till you make it. You hear all those.
Well, right. Exactly. And I feel like it's the same concept of acting as if it already exists, and acting like, okay, I have a podcast, let's create it. And so, and
Yeah.
it was that same exact mindset. And that's how, and you can't necessarily explain how it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. You're going to create it. And I think people need to be willing to take this leap of faith, if they will, to surrender the idea of knowing everything and knowing it all right from the very beginning. Like, our logical minds want to know everything right away,
Well, we crave
always.
certainty. We crave certainty. The
Right.
human being, the human condition craves certainty. We hate uncertainty. But I've always said, and I will always say, the unknown is where the growth is. The unknown is where the growth is. You know the known, it's certain. The unknown is your next level. You need to go fearlessly into that unknown. And I love the unknown. I've always been fascinated about the unknown, Bigfoot, aliens, ghosts,
Hmm.
spaceships, all that stuff. It's always been fascinating to me. Loch Ness Monster. The unknown has always been so fascinating to me because I've guess intuitively, I've always known my next level was in that unknown. I had to go where I did not know so I could learn and expand my consciousness, my awareness, my experience. So it's really where the growth is. Growth is. So if you can find out how to get comfortable with the unknown, that's the next level for people's life. It's that. And that's what I found in my experience with my students is just that. If they can get comfortable with the unknown, they're not so resistant to change because we crave certainty. We hate uncertainty. But that's a practice. That's something you can practice
Right.
and get out
And
of that.
it doesn't necessarily happen overnight where you
No, it's a practice. It's totally a practice. It's
right,
completely a practice. And but it can be you can program yourself, your
right,
subconscious. You become comfortable with it. It's like
right.
anything. It's not necessarily the 10,000 hours that Malcolm Gladwell was talking about in this 10th, right?
Mm,
But you can take this quantum leap through presence is what I've learned. Through present moment awareness, through living in moments where you're out of time, you kind of ramp up. You take this quantum leap in that 10,000 hour of practice when it comes to interrupting these bad patterns in your life that have held you down for years.
right. I would definitely agree. And I mean, would you say we're approaching about an hour, so I guess we can
Really?
begin to
See, there is
yeah,
no time.
there is
It's
no
timeless.
time.
When you're in the flow, there is no time. When you get caught up in these conversations, literally, when you learn to
Seriously.
be here now, there's nothing.
It flows and it's like I look at the clock and I'm like, oh. Wow.
No
Okay.
2 hour podcast on Evan's show.
Well, every once in a while. The thing is, I have something going on at 7, so I wouldn't be
No
able to do
problem.
it 2 hours.
No problem. And you're on
But
a different time zone. I'm in West Coast. That's right.
yeah, other side of the country. Beautiful
That's it.
technology. But
Yeah, I love it.
what what sort of based on the idea of exploring the unknown in the shadows through presence and through the now. I mean, is, is there sort of a way to do this with trying to feel how to ask the question. Sometimes words don't suffice for me, and I have more of a feeling than I do a
You're
actual
so much better
sentence.
off. You're so much better off. Then Evan, all you have to do then is just literally get quiet and just center your attention into your heart, where that's where the inspiration comes from anyway.
Hmm,
Because I've always, the inspiration is the blood of the soul, and the heart is God of the body, right? So if
right.
you can get into your heart, and just then the words will come because you won't have to try. You just let them
Hmm.
come. You don't allow. You just allow. You don't try.
You
You
allow,
just get
but
your
don't
awareness,
try.
put your presence there, and then let come out what's supposed to come out.
So when it comes to the shadows and it comes to the unknown, is there a way to approach them through presence that it does feel natural, that does feel loving for people? Because that's something we fear. That's something the unknown is something that most people don't relish. I relish the unknown just like you do. I'm
Mm.
fascinated by what goes beyond the realms of the human perception. So,
Hmm.
but is there a way to approach that? Because for me, I think that's the pillar of how to grow. Growth comes from the unknown. It comes from uncertainty. It comes from change. It comes from embracing that and embracing all that is. Based on the Nowist principles, how would you describe a way to approach that and send the listeners
What's
uh,
coming what's coming through to me, speaking of the heart, is the heart, and breathing into your heart is a fantastic way to answer that question and to experientially live into that truth and to know how to get through the unknown and into the unknown. If you take your left hand, you put it on your heart and you cover it with your right hand. Okay. And now if take a breath from, how to take a diaphragmatic breath.
mhm.
So now breathe really slow in and out from your diaphragm a couple times. So it's called breathing into your heart. And your heart is the most magnetic part of your body. There's a 9-foot energy field that goes like a torus, like a tube torus around your whole body, 9 feet in all directions from your heart. So that is the most magnetic part of your body. So when you're afraid or you're connected to outcomes or mental thinking, you connect to the most powerful part of your body, which is the presence actually resides mostly in your heart, not your stomach, not your head. This is the fourth chakra. You know, there's 8 chakras.
Mhm.
This is the heart chakra. So if you're afraid to go into the unknown, I've done this with students before. If you can breathe into your heart and get real pure and get centered, that's the most powerful part of your being. It's invincible. It's like a superhero power that when you have that connection, you get connected to that energy source. The unknown is not so scary because you're acting like God. You're acting
Mm.
like the source of all creation because your heart is the energy of that. And when you can get there, it's helped me get out of stress. Other people get out of stress, worry, fear, anxiety, or do something. Public speaking is one of the number one fears in the world. You've probably heard that. Many people
Yeah.
know that. But if I can teach people to get on stage right before they speak, to go through a visualization exercise with your imagination and breathing into your heart and using your present moment awareness to connect to that energy, it has this amazing transformative power. And for me, breathing into my heart is an exercise that I do as a habit. So when you've built up that spiritual muscle, if you will, the next thing you do into the unknown is not as scary. You build up this immunity to this physical immunity, this spiritual immunity to stressors in your life through perceived problems or unknown, scary things that are coming into your life. But the power of your presence, it all centers around your heart. So breathing into your heart, I don't.
Yeah.
Did you feel something? What did you describe? What you felt just doing that really quick exercise?
I would say almost a grounding sense of my whole being and feeling very, very connected to
Mm-hmm.
me, uh, connected to you, leading the exercise. And I would just say very much in tune. There is almost sort of a sense of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that in the sense we're exploring the unknown, but a sense of uh, assurance, if you will. Like there isn't any need to have fears. There isn't any need to worry, stress, and it's the sense of knowing that the heart can really lead the way. I would say,
That's it.
and
That's it. That's the unknown is where the growth is. And then when the unknown gets scary, you go back to that known, which is your centered heart, which is actually that interesting tube torus, that shape that I tell you about.
yeah,
If you cut open an apple in half, you see that toroidal shape. That's what the earth has, the same magnetic polarity. So think about how you affect your space, your energy, the field, it's your body, and you're connecting, you're harnessing it into your presence, into that infinite, timeless now. That's where your power is. That's like a superhero power that most people squander through just words and through amorphous feelings and thoughts and just half-witted, thinking, instead of no, connect to your presence, connect to that energy that is your heart. It'll transform. That simple exercise has taken so many people into presence quickly. And
right,
it's so simple. Yeah, and just what you experience, right? Just think about the power. If you made that a habitual way of living when you felt stress and overwhelm or fear, then you use your imagination to place your awareness on what it is you want to manifest. And you breathe in that circular manner for just 3 times, maybe, just 3 in, hold it for a second, then breathe out for 3. Like you can control this energy. And then when you control that energy, you put your awareness on what it is you want. You become this magnetic attractor. And then presence becomes a way of life, not just an exercise.
right. I feel like that's the ultimate way of integration. That's because I feel like integration for a lot of people is the most difficult part of
Yes.
how can I can be present in meditation, but how can I integrate it throughout the rest of my day? And
Yes.
that's such a simple but powerful tool because just those 3 breaths, I felt an immediate transformation.
Isn't it amazing? It's so simple. So the Now-ist meditation is 1 minute and it's similar to that, but there's 4 prayers that go with it. And if you go to my YouTube channel, Billy Mandarino, the Now-ist, you can just see it, the Now-ist meditation, the Now-ist prayers, the Now-ist morning rituals. Very simple, free training for everybody. Just learn step 1, getting out of stress and worry and the unknown is simple exercises like that.
Beautiful. And I'll definitely link that in the episode description so
Thank you.
everybody can
Yeah,
just,
right. And there's a free 5-day challenge. If you go to my website,
ooh,
the first page is a 5-day create a magnetic vision for your life challenge. How to use your imagination to magnetize your point of attraction. And there's just all kinds of my podcast is on there. I have my first Now-ist Experience live seminar, May 7th and 8th, 2021, here in
Mm,
Santa Barbara. I only have 60 spots because it's my very first one. And you can check it out on my events page. If you go to billymandarino.com events, you can see all about that. But just a lot of fun, exciting things happening, how I can serve this world and create this legion of Nowists that my Dharma, my purpose has called me to manifest.
right. And it's beautiful. And I can tell you that you're living authentically to that purpose. I can, just by speaking to you,
Mm.
I can feel that I know that. So,
Thank you, brother.
and
Namaste.
namaste. I absolutely love it. And so I will absolutely put all those links in the episode description. And um, I, I took a lot from this conversation myself. Like I'm feeling empowered and connected. And I know the listeners are feeling the same based on,
Thank you, Bay.
your
Call me
words.
anytime, man. I'm here to be of service. I'm on. Thank you for reaching out to me. It's been my honor to be on this wonderful show. I love your mission. I love, um, I'm telling people subscribe to Evan's channel, The Fifth Dimension, right?
Yes. I
It,
appreciate it.
yes, truly. I've already subscribed and and tell everybody I know to go to your channel because I love the work. All the guests you've had are right on point. And this is how you transform the world through more actions and more active present exercises like this and just connecting collectively with the consciousness of we're all one. We all come from the same, we're all returning to the same energy. So,
Right.
you know, I just send blessings and God's blessing out to everybody.
I love that. And I truly appreciate that. And I truly appreciate you for coming on. And I think we're going to need to plan on having another episode soon.
Yeah, just call me. It's so easy. It doesn't matter. I'm in Santa Barbara. You're in what city?
I'm in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Oh my gosh, we are literally
Dir-
3,000, 2,500 miles, whatever it is away.
right. Yeah. Direct opposite sides of the country.
Cool. I love it.
Wonderful. All right, man. Well, so I'm pretty quick with my podcast turnaround. I'll probably have this out sometime next week. I don't really know exactly what day. I just kind of go with the flow, and
Hey, just you got my email, right?
I
So
do.
just shoot me the link. I'll put up on all my social media.
Sweet.
And yeah, and I'll just encourage people to because I have about 10,000 followers, so I'll send it out to
Awesome.
all my social media channels and say, hey, check out the podcast, and then that's how it works.
Sweet. Well, sounds like a plan. I guess I'll
Yeah.
go from there. Wonderful.
Fantastic, man. Well, thank you, Evan. I'm just blessed to meet you, man. And just God bless
Yeah.
you. Namaste. And
Blessed to meet
call
you
me
as well.
if you have any questions or need help with anything. And I'm just here to serve.
All right. I greatly appreciate that. You're doing a great job of serving.
Cool.
So,
Thank you, my man. Thank you so much.
all right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Peace to you.